Thursday, November 27th. Can you believe we're a day away from the U.S. Thanksgiving and less than a month until Christmas? Time is flying. Let's see what's in the news today. So Hezbollah and Lebanon, or Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Israel have all agreed to a ceasefire for 60 days. So it'll be interesting to see how, as this conflict in the Middle East, not a war yet, but a conflict in the Middle East, settles down and talks begin or continue, how it has an effect on the price of crude over the next 60 days. So that'll take us basically till the end of crude futures right now, which is January 25th. And I think we're going to see a little less volatility in crude and maybe an opportunity for oil companies to start climbing up a little bit based on that increased, we'll call it, stability. We've got some other nominations to the Trump administration that have taken place, and those are the major news items. It's really going to be a fairly slow day today in the market. If we look at the futures, you can see that now one of the three indices, the Dow, is up. It's only up slightly, 41 points, which is less than 0.1%. And then you've got the S&P basically flat, minus 2.25 points, which is pretty much flat. And the NASDAQ, it was down more earlier. It's now only down 32 points, which is 0.15%. So I think we're going to see the NASDAQ pop, but there's a few things preventing that right now, and those are primarily the earnings coming out yesterday after market. So after market close yesterday, that would have been a Tuesday, the 26th, we had HP, we had Dell, we had Workday, and we had CrowdStrike, and they all took a dive, and they're all down in the pre-market. So we don't really follow HP and Dell, but the big news out of HP and Dell that's a little bit concerning is their server sales were off. And server sales would be indicative potentially of cloud spend and AI spend, because you're going to need new servers for the new NVIDIA Blackwell chips, and that's going to then support AI in the data centers. So that's an interesting piece of data just to mull over. You've got crude up above 69 today. Looks like it could be a positive day. I think it could be positive because of that ceasefire, the 60-day ceasefire in the Middle East. I think we might see crude actually climb up close to 75 by the end of January if those talks continue and there isn't a resurgence there in fighting. We've got the NASDAQ off. The VIX is down below 15. So 14.13 right now is where the VIX is sitting at. So that's a really good place from a volatility perspective and tells me that there's not a lot of concern out there, which on one hand is concerning because everyone thinks this market's going to continue to propel forward. And if you want to take a contrarian view, now might be a good time to go to cash. That said, I am still invested, but I'm trying to invest more daily than long term at this point, and take my profits, particularly before the end of the year, but certainly take my profits when they exist. So let's look for some opportunities today to take some profits. So Walmart continues to climb. That's interesting, even with the threat of tariffs, and a lot of people commenting on how these tariffs announced by Trump through call it a tweet, a social media post this week, are going to hurt the U.S. as much as they'll hurt other nations. Costco climbing as well, had a great day, almost up to $1,000, $971. That's on its way to a record right there. You've got ATD, which is Couche-Tard out of Quebec. They were the ones that attempted to purchase the 7-Eleven chain, and that didn't materialize. They're going to close in on $80 today, I would imagine. And then Home Depot is climbing as well, maybe indicative of expected further interest rate decline of 25 basis points this month, which we'll learn about shortly. And then all of the healthcare are up in the pre-market, but only slightly. CNR took a hit yesterday. I'm still waiting. If this drops down again to the low 150s, I think I'll definitely make a purchase there. One that's on the climb, even when oil's on the decline, is Con Ed. Con Ed was down in the $99 range recently. Would have been a steal. I never mentioned it back then because my focus really hasn't been on utilities. But this is a stock that looks like it could climb its way back up to 106. So we'll wait and keep an eye on that one. Valero down slightly in the pre-market, but most of the others are in the green today, and I do expect it will be a good day for oil today. So I might even consider getting into Valero in the pre-market when it's down, because I think that stock's going to get up to the 141 range today. So that could be a nice 1% gain there. That all depends on whether crude stays in the green. If it doesn't, then it's going to be a red day for oil. Going down into tech, so CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is down. Not as much as it was actually after the close yesterday. So it's making a bit of a comeback, which is interesting, but it was off significantly. You can see here in the early morning session down 6% right there, and it is now only down almost 2%. So that's made a move back. If we take a look at two others, let's look at Dell, who we don't follow. Dell announced worse than expected earnings, down 12%. And then if we take a look at one of its peers and look at HP, I have to type it correctly. If we look at HP and HP Inc., there we go, it's off about 7.5% right now in the pre-market on some earnings news. And then if we scroll down to one we do follow, that is Workday. And Workday didn't have super bad results. It just missed on the future forecast. So it's off 12% right now in the pre-market. I think there's money today to be made on Workday. I think Workday is going to come back like CrowdStrike did. Maybe not today, but next week. And I think you might find that there'll be a bit of a dead cat bounce here, and this could recover a few percentage points. So I think getting in on this, we'll see where it opens and steadies and kind of flattens out. It could flatline all day at this level. But if you start to see it move off of its bottom into the trading session, it might be an interesting time to make an acquisition of that and pick some up for a bit of a recovery. I think there's some potential there. Obviously, this drop of 11, almost 12%, is going to lower its price earnings, which is at 44 times right now, and it does have some good prospects. So, I mean, it's a super solid company, and I think there's some opportunity there. The other one that we talked about yesterday and recommended in the 415, 17 range was Microsoft. It jumped $9 yesterday, so that was a nice little bump there. We were saying it's going to get back to 430, and it got pretty darn close. And then the other one that we mentioned yesterday that we said would get to 575 was Meta, and it got right up there, and then it dropped down to 573, almost, well, 573.5. So pretty close to 575, and I think it could get up to 575 or a little bit higher, maybe into the 580s today. So still an interesting one to get in on, in my opinion, is Meta. A lot of positives around that. Great AI article out on the how advanced Meta is in the AI space right now. Google's making a comeback as well. Again, the recent dive was all based on the Department of Justice threat to separate Google and shave off the Chrome browser, have it sell off the Chrome browser due to antitrust. That's going to fall apart like every other antitrust case has in the U.S. So as soon as that happens and there's a news release, this thing's going to spike, and I don't want to miss that spike. So I got in on that early back in the 160s last week, and I'm going to hold that until it gets back up into the 185, 190s, or we get a press release saying that the Department of Justice is, I call it the Dow Jones, the Department of Justice has dropped its cases, not the Dow Jones. I'm just misspeaking. My apologies. So TSM down in the 181s. I've been buying this on the way down, hoping it would recover. I'm confident it will. I'm just going to have to hold it a little longer. This thing's going to be a $215, $20 stock. So just look at getting in on this now. I think it's an absolute steal. And these guys come out with earnings in the early mid-January timeframe, and the earnings I expect are going to be phenomenal as they were last quarter. So I'm banking on that. I'm just a a little worried with this one. The risk around TSM is any crazy tweets from President-elect about tariffs from Taiwan on chips. So got to be concerned about that, but I think there's a low probability there. And then you get into financials. SoFi up at 1550 and looking to climb again today. If you miss the boat here, keep an eye on this one and think about putting some money in. Just maybe dollar cost average your way into SoFi if you want to hold something that continues to rocket forward into the long term. There's not a lot of negatives right now in the financial services space. As we've seen the administration in the midst of a significant change, everything bodes well for financial services going forward. Goldman's up in the 605s and climbing today, and then you've got TD, Morgan Stanley, all of these big banks are doing well. JP Morgan is just off the charts, up at 250 and climbing even further by the looks of it today. So that's where we are. Good luck. Have a great Thanksgiving if you're in the U.S. Hope you get to spend some time with your family, and tell them about the channel that you're listening to and the tips that you pick up and the narratives that we talk about here. I'd love to get some more subscribers, so hit the subscribe button if you're liking these videos, and we'll talk to you again after the holiday.